We, the members of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors, do solemnly commit ourselves to a full and honest telling of the history of the occult as far as we know it. All right, we are back for another sort of like a flashback interview in a way, because our Mormon season is behind us, but I am interested. We're putting together a series of episodes that look back on recent topics and shed new light. Luke, what's going on today?
Well, we're here for a wonderful interview. Joining us today is Heidi Luv, a former Mormon and escapee of the Latter-day Saints Church, registered nurse with a focus on mental health, and host of the Unfiltered Rise podcast, exploring conspiracies, unusual ideas, esoteric explanations, and personal growth. And we're going to be leaning more towards that conspiratorial element today. Heidi,
Naturally.
Hello.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I am a listener, so I was really excited when you guys asked. So,
well, we're excited to have you.
Whichever way. Yeah.
Communication happened. You're here. We're glad that you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too. And this is such a fascinating topic that I think history just doesn't always get remembered, and especially it doesn't get remembered how it really was. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a fascinating topic.
Excellent. So today you're going to be guiding us through the Mormon Mafia, the whole connection going through it, starting with Howard Hughes and moving from there. So to give some listeners the context, let's give a little bit of background information on Howard Hughes and then move into the Mormon Mafia from there.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to share my screen because I have some great pictures of Howard and a bunch of stuff. And I think it is important to give, well, like I always say, if you want to know anything about people, go look up their family. Not that we are our family exactly, but it is what it is. We become what we've learned, right? And so it's important. All right. Did all those million screens go away and you just see this one now?
Only the one. Mm-hmm. It's perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll get into Howard. And I got some cute ones of him as a child. Howard Hughes here. We want to do that because things go weird later, which is why
Does he look just like Leonardo DiCaprio? Because that's how I picture him.
Right? He's so cute. I'm like, and his mom's a tad bit crazy. And it's super important that we know about this because his mother idolized him. He was an only child and his birth went so terribly wrong. I'm pretty sure I can figure out this statement of don't have any more kids ever again. So she was OCD, I think hereditary, and this made her way worse. And she never wanted to be separated from him. Like they co-slept till he was a teenager, which gives you all kind of issues.
Wow.
Yeah, Freud can let people know what's happened there. It's just it's never good. He idolized his mother, obviously, because of this. And, she would check his bowel movements. She would check his feet. She would make him stand on a little stool and observe every naked part of his body. And when puberty hit, this got, it got weird. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, it didn't get too weird, just obsessively worried for his safety. It was during the time like polio was going on and all of this stuff. And so I think she was just terrified that she would lose him. Mm. And I mean, I get it. She couldn't have any more kids. So she thought, which we'll get to, but he is this only child and he's very isolated and alone and he's super smart. And so, Howard Hughes did not come from a poor family in general. They had a very nice home, as you can see. Like back then, that's raking in the dough. His dad was an ex-oil catter, and he developed this. Well, he sort of developed this drill bit used to drill into, the ground when it was hard, and he kind of got it from this guy at the bar, and he's like, you know what, this is a fantastic idea. I think I'll pay you $100 for it. So isn't that the story of every rich person ever, though? And they're like, I invented this. And they're like, but did you? And so, yeah.
For all intensive purposes, I did.
Exactly. As far as you know, I did. I got the patent on it, man. So that's how that went. And then all of a sudden, he's extremely shy when he's young. And he's dashingly kind of handsome and everything. I think when he was young, he was quite handsome. But during this time, his dad got concerned. I think this was this is the dad intervening and saying, y'all are too close. You're not sleeping with your mom anymore. You got to go to charm school. So that's where he went. And as he's there, he gets the call that his 39-year-old mother died. She became pregnant once again, and I guess the doctors weren't a kidding. Shouldn't have done that. Although I don't know how you really prevent it back then, but she got pregnant and had an ectopic pregnancy, which they rushed her to surgery and she died on the table. So he's very young at this point. He doesn't return to school, even though he was doing quite well. He finally started to get like normal, and then they ripped him back home. Dad admits he brought him back home because he couldn't stand to be alone and he was sad, and so he brought him home, and that's what happened. So he gets there and he is going to college more local at this point, and he's there about 2 years, and his dad drops dead in the middle of a meeting.
Wow.
Oh, goodness.
So he's 18. Yeah. When this happens. And so no wonder, he's completely traumatized. He's already a little OCD. Mom's already kind of made him nuts. Everybody starts dying all around him. And literally, like, even before the dad dropped dead, he wanted Howard there, but then he couldn't stand to be home because it made him sad. So one thing I found out, I was researching a couple things today. And one thing I haven't went down on the different genealogies yet, that I just barely did, was his grandpa and his uncle. Now, his uncle Rupert was very important in his life. He had basically been taking him off and on for the dad during these 2 years because he didn't want to come home because he was sad. And so he had been, influenced by this guy a lot. This story reminds me so much of Curly. It makes me laugh because this guy comes from a preacher. He's a reverend, and he decides, oh, I hate everything about that. I don't want to do that. And so, the uncle is just like, I don't believe in God. But he's a graduate from Yale, which I did find interesting. It's going to play in because the Mormons have a pretty big presence with Yale and the startings of Yale and Skull and Bones and setting up of Skull and Bones in Utah, which is the only other Skull and Bones. They call it Allen Key, like Scroll and Key at Yale. And he may have had some influence here with these Mormon ties. So I think it's important to mention all of that, just to give a fair, synopsis of his life before he went to Hollywood. Yeah. So, with his newfound fortune at 18, he sues everyone in his family, starts right out the gate. Yeah. Says, I am old enough to take care of shit by myself. Oh, I don't know. Should I say that on here?
Shit is fine.
Stuff by myself. Okay.
Yeah, we do that word.
Okay, sorry. And I'm just going to go off on my own to California. And they were like, no. And he's like, yes, I can run my dad's stuff. I have everything. Like, he's barely 18 and he didn't finish school. And they were like, So they kind of went back and forth on this little Sue Happy adventure. And finally, he had the money to buy them out. And even though everyone thought he was nuts, just crazy, they were like, I guess, whatever, like, you can buy us out, let the company go in the hole, you're going to ruin everything. And so he pays them off with his inheritance, which, it was like more than half of it to be the outright owner at barely 18 of this company. It was the good move. Like, Howard did some really impulsive things, but I will say this, they were usually pretty good. He landed on his feet a lot, like, honestly. Everybody kind of knows the quintessential Howard Hughes and, airplanes. But what they may not know is he was actually vastly, like, super smart, 159 IQ. So, and no, Elon doesn't beat it, just to let people know. Because Elon has some Mormons up in his house, too, but we won't talk about him as much today. His number one money guy is a Mormon, just like Howard Hughes. And so I find that a little funny. But he went to California and he made these movies. He decided he was going to do this first. And, people usually know about the movie Hell's Angels and are familiar with that. That was the first one he really got overly involved in, and his OCD started ticking off. And he almost lost everything in that film because he got real wild up and was like, everything has to be exactly perfect. And that's not real life. So he did lose quite a bit of money on that, though it made a ton of money. He had spent a ton of money making it, but nobody's the wiser because, Howard Hughes still owns Hughes Tool Company, which is basically bankrolling all of this fun at this time. So he's able to do it without much, issue. And he gets really interested in airplanes and aeronautics. And most people don't know this, but he is cousins, pretty closely related to the Wright brothers. And so it makes kind of sense. He was pretty fascinated with planes at an early age. And he also was fascinated with electronics. He made himself a bike that he won like a prize for basically like the little bikes that are popular right now that are motorized. He made one when he was 14. He was super smart. He just would do things like that. Like, I just think I want to do this. And that's what he would do. So, yeah, he broke the first flight record in 1938 for flying around the world. A lot of people don't know that. Noah Dietrich at this point had become pretty close friends with him, and he was hired to handle a lot of his business deals. He really didn't care about that tool company other than he just wanted the money.
Yeah.
And, you know, that worked out for a little while, but we'll get to what happened there. So while he's doing all this stuff, he's, you know, become married, even though I believe this is his second wife. The first wife isn't quite as she's a serious woman. This is his second one. And her name is last name Rice. Of the Rices in Texas. And they're quite popular and very, you know, upstanding college family. I believe he owns one of the universities out there. I can't remember which, but they were a big deal. And he just decided when he moved away that he didn't want to deal with that anymore. So I guess he wasn't married anymore. And she would fly out there and cry and, oh, you've got to come back. And he would, you know, not come back. One time he hired Noah Dietrich to go to Thanksgiving with him because his aunt threw a fit and said, you have to get back here. Your wife is crying all the time. And he was like, sounds like a you problem. And he was just kind of like that. Like, I don't know if it was because he was too smart or just lacking empathy from, you know, trauma. Like, clearly he had trauma, which is sad. But he had that lack of those types of things. And so, you know, eventually he's getting to the point where he has so much money that people are kind of, I don't want to say they're running him yet, but they're very close with him and he counts on them a lot. And during this time, he has this horrible accident. A lot of people don't know this, but he killed someone. And I can't remember the date. I wrote this, but he had a hit and run and they said he was drunk when he did it. And originally he was booked. This is him being booked. And all of a sudden it changed. And I think this is the time where Howard's life takes a change as well, because things change after this. You know, when people help you out, sometimes you owe them a lot more than we will ever know or understand. But clearly he got off without any problems whatsoever. All of a sudden, the pedestrian that saw him hit this person didn't see that anymore and said, no, I think that guy ran out in front of him. So, yeah, it gets to the point where he is looking for other adventures. He kind of gives up on the whole movie situation. And, you know, he gets bought out of TWA because they start saying, you're kind of nuts. And yeah, he kind of was. Like, I mean, you can't say he wasn't, but he was super smart. And so they wrote him the biggest check that had ever been written in the history of America. I don't know about the world, but certainly America, for $250 million at the time. So he's got a problem. And this problem is that if you have $250 million in your pocket, the IRS is going to want some of that money. All right. So it becomes a situation where he really doesn't know what to do. He's not sure. He's got to reinvest it at some point, right? He's got to do something. So he goes to Las Vegas because Noah Dietrich says, hey, I've got this really great idea. You should come to Las Vegas and we'll set you up with some stuff here. And he went first to the Desert Inn and he was going to buy a place of his own, but you know, he wouldn't stop doing weird things like walking around naked at the Desert Inn. He was, you know, I mean, what do they say? Rich people are eccentric, poor people are crazy nuts, right? Apparently he's eccentric because he's rich. And so at some point they're like, look, Mr. Fancy Pants, you have got to quit this.
Or Fancy No Pants.
You can't. Yeah, Fancy No Pants. Yeah, you're driving out people. You're not gambling because we don't know why. You don't like to gamble and you've got to go. And he's like, you know what? I don't really want to move. I like it here. And they're like, too bad. And he's like, how much for you to leave? And so he just pulled a, you know, big D deal. And he was like, I don't have to go. You go. So he did. He bought his very first casino there. And this started something that was so crazy and ties him into the Mormons. And this is where we start to see them appear. So little background for people that don't know about the Mormons. I do mean the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is what they're called now, but then they were referred to as the Mormons. I didn't coin the term the Mormon Mafia. Somebody else did in a newspaper long ago, not me. And so the Mormons actually settled and built the first permanent Las Vegas settlements ever. And they quickly found out after about 2 or 3 years that that wasn't going to work out very good for farms and whatever they were trying to do. So they left. But, Las Vegas remained, and eventually the mob moves in, and the rest is, history. Up until the point where it becomes a corporate entity, which we know that it is today. He thinks this is just like a one and done business deal. But like I said, he's got all this money and he doesn't kind of know what to do with it. So people beneath him, mainly Gay, this is this guy's last name. He's going to be the little runner for Howard for all kinds of little things, basically an errand boy. Mm-hmm. He's no big deal. Like he's just running around doing what he's told. And, this is a picture of him later in life. And they're like, okay, you do this, you do that. He's the driver. He's, all these different things. Well, that's fine and all for a little while. And he stays that way for a little while because somebody else named Mayhew is kind of running Howard at this time. But remember, Gay is there. He's there as an errand boy. He's not a big integral part yet. And Mayhew is a spy. Are you guys familiar with Bob Mayhew?
I've heard the name before.
Awesome. Well, here we go. He's not a Mormon, but he is the chief executive of Nevada operations for Howard Hughes for quite some time. He starts in 1955 and he's hired to investigate the pretty wife that I showed, okay? And her name is Jean Peters. He did get a second wife, and this is how they meet. This pretty wife of his, he won't spend any time with her. He basically has her come in for 20 minutes a day. He looks at her. He tells her to leave after 20 minutes. He just looks at her. He never touches her because he's become a weirdo germaphobe. So at this point, he's contracted syphilis. And I think this has a bigger part of why he was the way he was with her. I'm not sure if he knew before he married her or not, but definitely he had syphilis. And so that probably isn't happening like very well with his OCD in his brain and syphilis to the brain with a lot of things going on. And it could have been part of why he was so strange here soon. But at this point, he's semi-strange. And Mayhew is like there, and he's supposed to investigate her because surely she's cheating on him. I'm like, you spend no time with a woman and you never touch her, but sure. Yeah, she's not, I don't know if she was cheating or not, but apparently Mayhew made it worse. And this is a guy that is like handling everything for him. He's doing all this stuff, but why does he have this job, right? Like, where did he come from? Well, he was a CIA, not officially, but he is an associate of the CIA. His life is actually the basis for Mission Impossible. So when we look at Mayhew, we're like, okay, why do you all of a sudden have some weird job and you retired from this? This doesn't, all of them do this. All of them do this. They become some weird teacher or whatever later. But this guy is not just a little bit in. He was also in the FBI. He orchestrated plots against Castro. He's part of the Nixon Zapata oil offshore Watergate situation, which is definitely going to come up. And he did the leasing on an island from Hughes, and he used it as a backing and a base for CIA raids on Cuba. And guess who owned that? Bush.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Zapata oil and the Bay of Pigs all kind of are a part of this mess. And so there was also another thing that he was involved with and that he kind of talks Howard Hughes into, not just the Spruce Goose, but this other one. Let's see. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I have a picture right here. And it's called Project Azorion. They said they got this from a file. I don't think so. The Azore Islands are quite known for maybe being Atlantis, right? And so they knew some stuff. Let's be real. Onassis is running around with a lapis lazuli fireplace at this point, and they're all doing these weird projects in the Azores. Sure, it's just about recovering something that sank there, and that's all. No. But the story is They used these boats, and they were going down to retrieve another Russian boat and all this stuff. And it's this big project. And yeah, I don't think so. So also they were, this is a submarine. That's what it was. Submarine, not a ship, submarine. Here's the picture of kind of what they were doing. Like, of course, we don't have real photos of it, but the Glomar Explorer opened to lower massive grappling claws, and they were capable to bring up parts of a submarine. So, you know, CIA illustration of how the ship worked. I mean, we're definitely in the club at this point. Like, Howard has either purposely or accidentally surrounded himself with 3-letter agencies, and it's only going to get worse. And Mayhew is only the first. And also, just so everybody knows, he worked undercover at one point, this is Mayhew, and worked for Sam Giancana. Well, Giancana was a big part of Las Vegas. And it's how Howard kind of also put his little claws in buying up so much Las Vegas real estate that at some point they said, you can't buy any more things because you will have a monopoly. Yeah. So he did that to the point where they just told him, no, you cannot buy the Stardust. You've bought enough things. You cannot own any more real estate here. You own almost the whole state. Go away. And so, you know, you can't hardly blame them. I'm sure they were getting worried, like, what exactly is happening here? But one thing's for sure, this whole thing with the wife explodes in Mayhew's face at this point. And that's why I introduced Gay, who will pop back up now and become the Mayhew of the era. And he is a Mormon. He is just the errand boy. He doesn't have the backing to take over, like how Mayhew had all this crazy credentials and everything. He's just this. Like, he's young. Like, it kind of was out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, he's labeled as one of the nurses, but that's not what he's doing. He arranged all the security completely of the Mormon Mafia and then began only hiring other Mormons, which actually Howard preferred because he didn't like people that smelled like cigarettes because of this whole OCD business. And they didn't drink, gamble, or smoke or any of that stuff. They didn't have a lot of vices. So he kind of thought, that's, you know, maybe this is a good thing. I can teach him. He's young. So, you know, he figures, oh, this nice young man will be just the way to go. Well, it works out for him. But, you know, he runs into some other people through Gay, who sets up another acquaintance, and that is E. Perry Thomas. And E. Perry Thomas does not ever hardly get included in this, but he is called the Quiet Kingmaker. And he was one of the first ones to ever open up the bank and lease lands like to the casino people. So money for that only on the operations. And guess where they got the money from for these loans, right? They're tapping the pension funds of the mob. Okay, so the Teamsters. Mm-hmm. So, and this guy is working at this point. Yeah, and he's the chief executive officer of the Bank of Las Vegas. He was originally in Salt Lake City, and he was moved there by the church to open this up. And Hughes wanted him as a consultant, and actually what he would do, which is completely illegal today, he would go and buy up the properties himself without Hughes ever being present, and he would acquire all this stuff for Hughes. So at this point, Hughes is being like not seen as much anymore. He's only seeing like select few people. He's starting to get really isolated. And so I always wonder, you know, people want to say, oh, well, he was crazy because he did a lot of drugs. I'm like, maybe. Or maybe people had other ulterior motives for him because he also ends up at 6'4" to be 93 pounds and have multiple needles broken off under his skin in his autopsy. Not one. And trust me when I tell you, as a nurse, drug addicts are good at what they do. They're not breaking needles off in their arms. They've got it figured out. Look, they are some of the best people ever to like draw blood in the earth. Okay. They should have like a cross training thing. I work with addiction. Like, they're good at it. They are not breaking needles off in their arms. It's a ridiculous story. And back then, these needles are huge hypodermic syringes. Now, there's only one reason why that happens. And I know because I've given a lot of injections over my time that were not wanted necessarily because I work in a psych hospital, okay? And I've never seen one broken off, thank goodness. But I can see under a struggle how that could happen. Okay. That would be my guess as a nurse of 25 years that, those were probably something he didn't want. And they were keeping him quite sedate, I'm sure. But I can't prove that. But this E. Perry Thomas, like I said, he's involved in this now with Gay. And something funny about him is he was a World War II intelligence paratrooper and skier. George Eccles was kind of his godfather, says his son, and helped the casinos and the Teamsters pension funds in the 60s. I bet he did. So this becomes part of how the real mob gets ran out of town. And by the 70s, it's completely corporatized. And Howard Hughes is a piece of why that happened. But every one of these people almost has some kind of intelligence tie or something. Like they've worked with people that were in intelligence. They're around intelligence. It's very strange. Like this guy's just a banker. Like what? Why is he, why is he involved in that? And also later, even though he's just the banker, he becomes the CEO of Summa Corp after he retires, which is the company that Howard Hughes owns, which he gets kicked off of his own board. Okay. Yeah.
So Hughes is almost just a figurehead at this point.
Really, honestly. And it's just very sad is what it is. And so this is the picture of the Summa board. And these are the people running it. And almost all of them are Mormons at this point. And the bankers that back these people are also Mormons. And so we've got this white collar crime syndicate that has taken over and ran the blue collar crime syndicate out. And it's nicer for, people because now they're paying taxes or they are legally evading them, but they're legally evading them. So, the government's happier with this. Then this picture, the reason why this guy looks so crusty is these are actually at the Watergate hearings.
Oh.
Yeah. So this gets hairy here soon. But at this point, we got to lay the foundation and basis for why and how, like, everyone's involved. I mean, like, okay, you're just a banker, but you're a friggin' 3-letter agency paratrooper. What is happening? Why is that important? Why is this happening to you? Like, it seems very strange to me that all these people, and he ends up actually helping Steve Wynn acquire all of his companies as well. And he calls him his other son. So just so you guys know. So he's the one that literally did make the Kings. That's why he's called the Quiet Kingmaker of Las Vegas. And even to this day, like where that wealth flowed and what happened with it was all decided eons ago. And this all goes into Eccles, which is a really, really famous Mormon family. Like the Bain Company, that'll come up. Romney comes up. All these people, these people together. Yeah, it's just really, it's odd, right? Like, why are they all so connected? And what in the heck is going on with these people? Well, Howard had this weird situation of living out there in Las Vegas. And so he ends up being, I don't think I have a picture of John Mayer, but John Mayer, he ends up hiring John Mayer. Oh, here's his book. And he writes this book, and this is a great book. This is one of about 6 that I used to compile all this. And he writes of all this stuff that's going on while he's working there. He's also, got some strange ties with his dad and Germany. That's the whole thing. But as far as for Hughes, he gets hired because Howard Hughes doesn't like it that they set off the test bombs there. He's very freaked out about this. And he is a pilot, don't forget. He's had some pretty bad crashes. And there's rumor that he has his own hangar at Area 51. So he's told other people that he's like, knows there's aliens and all this weird stuff. So the one thing about the Seance of the 9 is this is a really old seance back east with Puharik, and it gets really strange. I have a couple episodes out on it. But they talk about they've got to stop these bombs. And I kind of feel like every time they talk to these entities, the table tappers are like, you got to stop bombing each other, like stop bombing the ground. And that's kind of what Howard Hughes wanted. He wanted this all to stop. He was like, you guys have got to quit it. So he hires this guy, Meyer, to try and shut down like all these bombings. And they're like, yeah, we're the government. He got the government to move 100 miles once to set off the nuke that they were going to blow up that day to just not bother him as badly. And they were like, yeah, it still shook the world. So yeah, we're not doing it anymore because it made no difference. And so, but I mean, what kind of power is that? You know?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Right. And he's got all these people that are like completely surrounding him that are, you know, in the club or were in the club or whatever. So I'm sure that helped, you know, probably a little. And like I said, he doesn't like this. He wants to figure out a way to make it stop completely. And the one way he kind of goes through to do this is through Nixon. Well, Nixon's brother. So Nixon's brother is a problem. Like he's like the creepy brother that you wish you didn't have because it kind of ruined his life. And this is him. And he accepts a bribe from Howard Hughes at some point to open up a fast food chain. And he says it was a loan, but it's the kind you don't have to pay back. So it's over $500,000, which back then, that's a lot of money, you know. And he takes the money and it becomes a huge part of Watergate. And so, and RFK, and there's rumors that RFK knew about this and that Nixon was in, you know, the back pocket of Hughes. This is a little drawing from a Playboy article. Playboy actually used to have good articles. I don't know what they're doing anymore, but really when you hear that from back in the day, it might have been true. They might have been reading it for the articles. And so that was a great article that they put out. And what it was he was so paranoid that they were going to find out about this bribe. And when they broke into Greenspun's offices and all these different things, he completely lost his mind thinking, oh my gosh, we've got to get this stuff back, you know, or they bugged it. They know our secrets. They know I paid, you know, Nixon's chubby brother. Like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen? We have to get this back. And so, you know, this is kind of, he is the reason for Watergate. Like really his paranoia, like, okay. Have you ever seen a picture of, the something slipper? It's a really old casino out there. I'll think of it. A silver slipper. Have you ever seen that? Mm-hmm. It's got a giant slipper, like a shoe, like a high-heeled shoe on it. And he was so paranoid at this point of people spying on him that he bought that hotel just to make that slipper stop rotating because it was by his other hotel that he's living naked in. And he's like, people could live in that shoe like old Mother Hubbard and spy on me from it. So we have to stop that. And we're going to make like a little thing where they can't come up and touch it or be around it or anything. So that's what he does. I mean, this is to the level we're really slipping, you know, and so at this point things are not well. And that kind of tells you exactly how very paranoid he is. And entering the picture of all this mess and a big part of Watergate is Bob Bennett. And for those of you that don't know, Senator Bob Bennett, and everybody gets mad at me, because they're like, he's the nicest old man ever before he passed away. And I'm like, look, his family members wrote up the genealogy whole situation for all the Mormons, clear back to Adam and Eve. And then they put on there that the Mormons only have the divine right to rule because they go back to Charlemagne and stuff. And it's a whole thing on a Jewish star. It's very lovely. So I don't know exactly how nice he was. I'm sure he was great. Look, I don't know. But I will tell you what I do know about him. So he was 23 years in the Senate, and he was the grandson of Heber J. Grant. Well, Heber J. Grant is one scary dude, and he is the prophet of the church, okay? And Heber J. Grant is interesting, and I just want to give this at this point, just to let you guys know kind of how the Mormons have always been infiltrating everything. And he was somebody that did not want to be part of, you know, bishoprics. He just wanted to be a businessman. He always told his mom, like, I don't want to do that. And he is the grandson, you know, that is supposed to take the place for the next prophet. And he's like, no, I don't want to. And so he absolutely becomes a businessman. And part of something that I've watched called Secret Combinations. And he gets involved because he was actually raised by this guy named William J. Godbey. And if people recognize his name, he was over the Godbeyites, but he was the one that actually helped bring in the Federal Reserve to Utah, which is why I'm bringing him up right now. And so, the Mormons are part of the club. Over and over, I tell people, look, they're nice people. The regular Mormons don't know any of this stuff. If you go tell them, do you know that Heber J. Grant was a part of bringing the Federal Reserve to Utah? They will be like, you are a crazy person. Like, they're nice people. My grandma, most of my family is still in whatever, but they don't understand, that most of the things they do are occultic and Masonic. And I mean, they're more occultic than Masonic, honestly. And not occultic as in just hidden. They're literally part of witchcraft ceremonies. So anybody can do anything they want. I don't care. But don't tell people that they're not a part of it and then use their energy and then never tell them the truth. That's pretty awful. I mean, I just think that if you're doing magic, you should understand the magic at some point. Sure, the Masons get hoodwinked, but at some point they know that's going to happen, right? When you go pledge, you're like, guess what? You know you're going to have some stuff lied to. And then they'll tell you the stuff later. You'll be okay. But even in that, there's porch Masons. Well, I like to call these porch Mormons because they are the people that look good for the church. I mean, they're just normal people living their everyday lives trying to go to heaven, which is even more sad, because that's why they do these occult rituals and they don't understand what they're doing. So neither did I. I went the whole way. I did all the things, didn't understand crap until I got out. So I just think they should be honest and, make it like a Harry Potter school or something. I don't know. More people would join. I mean, really, at least they know what they're doing and then they wouldn't do accidental stuff or something. Some of it's serious. I think myself, I don't know if you guys have heard, but I personally think Joseph there, the reason why he got so much admiration from Crowley was because like recognizes like, and he knew he completed the Abramelin and talked to his HGA. So he was like, yeah, that's my boy. Also, he had no other kids from the women he was sleeping with.
Yeah.
Tantra. It's fine. Yeah. It's fine. Whatever. People can do whatever they want. Just don't lie about it. Don't lie to people about it that are in it. How about that? Lie to other people about it. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine if you want to do it and keep it secret to yourself because it doesn't hurt your neighbor to not know. But it does hurt the lady that's doing it that's 97 and she just thinks she's going to heaven. That's sad. You're being bad. You're using people's energy. That's not nice. So, and it works. I mean, the current prophet's 101 years old, for heaven's sakes. He's a prophet, seer, and revelator. Why do we do necromancy? Prophet, seer, revelator. Right. So I'm saying it works. I don't know. Back to Bob Bennett. Bob Bennett was no seer because if he could have saw what he was going to have happen, he would have never done half the crap he got involved in. So Bob Bennett, he's the son of Wallace Foster Bennett, senator from Utah, and the grandson of Heber J. Grant, as I said. He was a chaplain in the Army National Guard, and he was also in the CIA. So, he also got involved with Watergate later because he became the owner of the Mullen Company. The Mullen Company was the company that E. Howard Hunt worked for during the whole mess of the Watergate situation. And Hunt was the key CIA Cuban ops, and he was deliberately trying to get rid of Nixon. And so, Bennett confirmed that he did buy through Hughes Tools, which became Summa Corporation, and later over the CIA front where E. Howard Hughes would work. So he quit the CIA just specifically to go work for this guy. Okay, It's a front. I mean, now we know. It wasn't known then, and I'm sure people were like, what the hell are you doing, Bobby? Stop being weird, but yeah, he didn't, and it really didn't serve him well. It got him in big trouble, and Bennett actually ended up, well, he did have as his other two people other than Hughes at his company, the Osmonds, which was a fun one since lately they've had some weird stuff going around.
Like Donnie and Marie?
Yep, Donnie and Marie. Donnie and Marie had an altar in their house that they need to explain, but you can look that up. It gets weird. Yep, right. It's weird. Like a kill room with an altar and it's all tiled and white.
Boy.
Yeah. Just missing the plastic. We need that. Oh, no. it was up for sale or something. Like 100 people sent it to me and they were like, did you see this? I'm like, oh boy. All right, whatever. I don't want to know. And it's probably not killing people. It's just messy. So that and Howard Hughes are basically, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir are his only people at this company at this time. The Mormon Tabernacle Choir is a big one, and it comes into big importance later on. Even I don't know how long you guys want to go, but when it gets to RFK. So at this point, we're not that far, and they end up, quietly leaving this situation alone and just like, please just leave into the unspotlight and go away. And so he does. He ends up taking over as like some head of the Summa Corporation, of course, for a couple years. And then he ends up, displaced somewhere else. So of course he does. Also associated with this Robert Mullen Company, just so people know, under Bush it began, and it was the CIA front back then in 1971, speculating that it was the church that actually helped him purchase it as well. So just for people's, background. Bannister, MJ-12, Nazis, Permindex, and UFOs all come up with E. Howard Hunt. So he's a fun guy.
It seems so.
Yeah. In 1972, the FBI memo confirms this in the Rockefeller report. So if anybody gets bored and wants to look that up, they're more than happy to. But all of this stuff, like I said, they just wanted it to go away. So from 1978, or until 1978, he becomes vice president of Hughes Air West. And then after that, he goes to work at Franklin Covey, which was a big deal. If you had a Franklin planner in the 2000s, that's your guy. So he actually pretty much went away unscathed. I mean, I'm sure it looked embarrassing, but other than that, he kind of got out still with his pants on, not like Howard. Oh, too funny. But again, don't forget, he brings in these connections, as does Mayhew with Bush and Zapata Oil as fronts for these things. So that's a fun one. That's a fun rabbit hole to dive down. Another fun rabbit hole that this kind of connects to is this guy right here, Ben Rich. You ever hear of Skunk Works?
Mm-mm.
So Skunk Works is... all the stealth technology, Air Force stuff. Like it's the biggest like secret spy planes, all that stuff. And he was this big pioneer in it. He's also a Mormon. He's the one that was talking about, we have the technology to go to the moon. He wasn't supposed to say it. People were like, shut up, stupid. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. And so, yeah, he was kind of blabbing a little bit. I think he got excited. I don't know. Just so that people know, this isn't the only thing that Hughes was involved in with all these different projects. We also have one other thing that people often forget, and that is the fact that he was the main person that started satellite systems. Like, people don't know that oftentimes, and it's such a huge critical piece. In fact, one of the girls he used to date said, oh, I remember Howard had a phone that he could call anywhere from anywhere. And it was a great big phone. So HughesNet is what it was called, or HughesNet, the history of HughesNet satellite internet.
Yeah.
So
I had HughesNet growing up. It was miserable.
But he got all those satellites up there.
Oh,
now
yeah.
Elon has them. Yeah. Elon knows now. It's all back to, John Trump, but we won't go there today. People, if you want a rabbit hole, go check out John Trump. Uncle John. He mentions him often. If you guys don't know this one's actually pretty good. He was associated with Tesla, and supposedly, I think this is why Mar-a-Lago got tossed, is supposedly Trump had papers in his possession about the Tesla technology because his uncle worked for them. So for Tesla directly. And so, it's kind of mostly, I bet, why they didn't want him in the position he's in. It's kind of uncomfortable to have somebody have those kind of secrets. But also, we have to talk about what happens later with Gay. So after Howard sadly dies, and there's a lot of really wild connections through Mary Paint Company. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so Mary Paint Company is interesting. Even our boy Trump ends up being connected, all of this, with Mary Paint Company through this one right here, this Resorts International. And this is one of the hotels. And, for a while he was very into the hotels before the Trump stuff. But his first one was called the Atlantis Hotel. So Trump likes to do these little flexes that get him in trouble because people don't like it when he's like, look at me, I have, all the Tesla stuff and the 2 eye stone, and I know more than you do. But it pisses people off. So whatever. He even became over, the Resorts International, which is underneath all these corporations, linking back to Howard Hughes for a couple of years. He was the boss over it, as is also his best friend, Roy Cohn. That one's a spicy meatball. Check out Roy Cohn. If you haven't seen the biography, it's like on Amazon, it's Where's My Roy Cohn? They put it behind a paywall now, and as they should. It
Featured
gets
in
very
Angels in
interesting.
America. Yeah, the fun one there is Angels in America is also very much about Mormons. It's a Tony Kushner play, big play from the late 90s. Very much about Mormonism and very much about Roy Cohn.
Yep. And Bain, okay, so Gay goes on to take over. Once Howard dies with this whole Resorts International, they basically kidnap him. The CIA kidnaps him. Also, if you believe the whole gemstone story, it was Onassis, but I don't know. There's a whole story about Onassis being behind it. But regardless, this guy, James O. Golden, is on security detail and takes him, Howard Hughes, and nobody ever sees him alive again. And so it was on Thanksgiving night. He just whisks him off, and then supposedly he's just traveling all over without the proper identification, and they won't let him land certain places because of it and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, this guy, he's, made too. He's Secret Service as well. So he was the detail with Vice President Richard Nixon's 1959. So he ends up somehow, again, Mormons working for Hughes after they're in the CIA, and they did him dirty. All of these people afterward this is why there's the tie to Onassis, which I have a whole nother thing on. But after all of this happens and goes down and he passes, all of them go to work for Onassis. So it is, it's interesting. I don't know. It seems very strange. Onassis has some really weird connects in general. He's one of the only people that had ships during the war that none, and I mean 0, were ever sank. And so it gets weird. But so Gay's the one that continues on after everything is wrapped. He becomes over the Howard Hughes Medical Center, but it does take 34 years to settle this will. You guys do your wills. That is something else. And so, he kind of gets quiet. He stays in the church. He becomes very high up in the church because the more money you have, the more important you are. When you pay your tithing, it's, they don't want the people with the measly money. He becomes quite the important person in the church. And his son is an even more important person in the church. But he does say that this Mormon will that comes up, and there's this random guy. He's like, oh, I'm supposed to deliver this to the church and I get some money too. And he never got anything. And that was considered a fake, but it did come up, and it was really weird during this time. This guy could have spoke up during that time frame and said, I know his handwriting. I'm his closest assistant. I'm not his nursemaid. I'm running his company. I'm on the board. Like, come on. They call them nursemaids. It makes me sick. Yeah, he had Mormon nursemaids too, but not these guys. These guys are running the show. So he could have stopped all that and said, yeah, maybe the Mormon church deserves some of this. Instead, what he did was, I think that's fake. And then he goes and takes the money, it was all put into Howard Hughes Medical at this point, so he could remain tax-free because then it's under a medical association. And guess who pushed that through for him? Nixon. Nixon illegally pushed that through for Hughes when he was alive so that he would be tax exempt status on everything. He did an umbrella company, which the Mormon church knows all about. Anyway, people can look up the Ensign Peak scandal on that. It was dismissed, but it's very dirty, dirty chess. And Nixon pushed it through. So this guy ends up with the best cake of all because he got to be over Howard Hughes Medical Center until he almost died. And Gay, with no proper training, no proper schooling, just the little chauffeur boy at first, ends up getting the biggest piece of the pie. So kind of strange. And his family goes on to become quite important later. And this is his son. And the problem with him is There is a problem. He goes and joins the Quorum of the 70 as he's older, which is very important in the Mormon church. There's the Quorum of the 12, and then the Quorum of the 70, and there's the Quorum of the 50 if you know stuff. But you're not supposed to know about that one. So he's in the Quorum of the 70, which is usually a lifelong thing, and you get money and everything. Once you hit a certain age, you're made for life. And I think it was 70. Maybe it's just straight out 70. I can't remember which age it was, but as soon as he turned that age, they let him go. They just fired him because his dad died and he did some things. So he hooked up with our friend Mitt Romney, and I'm sure people remember Mitt at Bain and Company. And it came out when he was really young. Mitt Romney and he ended up in a big merger, and they were doing these loans, and they both worked at Bain and Company, and they were kind of like dirty loans, and they were a big part of why the housing market crashed, because and those bank bailouts, part of that was from this, and they were doing high lending and then taking the assets really quick. Like they knew these companies couldn't pay, and they would just take everything. And so it kind of got out that they were doing this stuff, and the church was like, and you're dismissed because you got caught. Not really because not really because of the whole situation, I don't think, just because they got caught doing it. It looked bad. And they go on to do a merger later, Gay and another company. Let's see, I think this is the slide right here. Nope. Give me the next. No. All right, I'll show you when I get there. So Gay's son, this is the guy that got kicked out of the church, just the one I showed you just a second ago. So this would be the number one guy from Hughes's grandson. He marries this lady. And if you guys watch Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, you'll recognize her.
I can't say it's on my normal watch list.
Yeah, me either. For honestly, I know. But she is kind of important because the thing about her is it's not really her that's the big deal, but she basically kind of blew the whistle on this whole situation. She's like, my family, they're from like, my husband's from like the most important people ever, and they worked for Howard Hughes and got a ton of money. And she kind of let that out in some interview. But the funnest part of her is her dad. And her dad, John Lloyd Deans, was FBI for 20 years. Oh, you better believe. All of a sudden during 2020, just dropped dead, apparently. I don't know about that. Anyway, whatever. He was at Quantico right after his graduation and mission to Helsinki, Finland, and he spoke avid German. Go figure. Anyway, at the FBI, and he learned how to be this heli spy that was hunting thieves of historical indigenous sites, and I'm not kidding. So like a real life Indiana Jones person that he goes after them.
Yeah.
So if they go steal the article, I'm sure that means he's taking them back to the Smithsonian. He did win the State Archaeologist Award as special agent in charge of land management. So he retired and became a teacher. Of course he did, of high school students. So guess what he was over? The Sterling Scholar Advisor. So he's recruiting at school. So basically, the FBI guy goes in and starts the recruiting process early for the young Mormons here in Utah, Pleasant Grove. Yeah. So that's a fun one, because actually in Utah they are some of the most 3-letter recruited ever. Period. So there's a whole system, and they don't deny that.
It seems like there's widespread kind of aftermath and chaos that stems from this. With that in mind, how has the Mormon Mafia kind of impacted people's public perception of Hughes, as well as the Church of the Latter-day Saints as a whole? What taste has it left in people's mouths?
I honestly don't think it affected them. Maybe at the time of Watergate, there was a little bit of affect, but I wouldn't say overall, hardly anyone knows about this. And they play it off very well and say they were his nursemaids. They were just nursemaids, and that's it. And so when people hear that, they're like, well, he just liked people that didn't smoke and drink. So what's the problem here? And this is kind of a recreation of what he looked like when he died. He had gotten so bad that he quit cutting his fingernails. He quit cutting his hair. He started wearing tissue boxes on his feet, which sounds really crazy until you read the Golden Bough. Till you read about the kings in the Golden Bough, and how they couldn't cut their hair, and they couldn't cut their fingernails, and they couldn't touch the floor unless people came in the night and stole their haircut away and stole their fingernails away. That's how they would get haircuts and stuff back then. So the Mormons didn't even do it good, but I don't think he ever slept.
Hey, I mean, it looks like, at least from my perspective, they found him some nice custom fitted tissue boxes, though.
That right? Yeah, it's a rendition, but
yeah.
for sure, I'm like, oh, ouch. And that all comes from some different little people writing their memoirs, is how that movie was played out. I did forget to mention this as well. When he was pronounced dead, don't forget, you know, he had to get his drugs somewhere. Dr. Wilbur S. Thane, 53, who was physician who pronounced Howard R. Hughes dead in 1976, was indicted today by the federal grand jury for drug law violations because he was smuggling drugs from Acapulco, the Bahamas, and all these places in sealed envelopes, which leads back to John Mayer's book, Age of Secrets, where he said he saw an envelope and they told him, don't worry about it. It's for Mr. Hughes. So, yeah, he's a Mormon, of course. Yeah. The Mormon doctor, the Mormon aides, the Mormon nurses, the Mormon council that's running your business.
Goodness me.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot.
Well,
And I think the reason why they don't want a lot of this rehashed is because clearly it's going to run smack into Trump. It's going to run smack into Mitt Romney. Like, these people are still alive, you know? Yikes.
well, Heidi, for our listeners who want to kind of explore this further, where can they find you?
You bet. So I love doing stuff like this. Like I said, I think I have about 4 or 5 of these out now. A couple all the way down with Jackie, and it gets interesting with George DeMornshield being her writing instructor at age of 8. But hey, whatever. I don't know. It's stranger than fiction. So if you want to check out some stuff like that, come check me out at the Unfiltered Rise with Heidi Luv. I'm everywhere podcasts are served, unfilteredrisepodcast.com, and YouTube as well, but it gets less drops than the rest because they don't like me talking about this.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? They game your algorithm?
Yeah. Well, I've been dinged a few times for misinformation.
Really?
Maybe it's the doctor thing. I don't know, but yeah. So I do once a week instead. After that happened to me twice, I was like, okay, that's enough of that.
Maybe it's Trump. I mean, not Trump personally, but like the mention of current living
Or
politicians.
Cone, maybe, or the people still alive. Who knows?
Yeah.
But this is all very super well documented. Anything I've presented today is pretty easy to find on FBI declassified docs, so, or even Wikipedia on some of it.
Excellent.
So,
well, Heidi,
thank you for having me, you guys.
thank you for joining us.
Thank you for this is great. It's very interesting.
Sirhan is more fun as well. Like I said, it gets very interesting with the ties to Nixon and Watergate and everything, and Amorc. Yeah, it gets wild.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I hope we send some listeners your way, and we look forward to speaking to you again.
Yeah.
Same. Thank you so much, you guys.
Take care, Heidi.
Bye.
Bye.